Hi and welcome to Kegels and Coffee. My name is Isabel and I'm your host. I recorded this episode with Laura Jolly late last summer. I had found her yoga class in Grand Junction shortly after moving there, and honestly, it changed the entire experience of a pretty difficult phase of my life. With deep stretches and breath work, Laura helped me sink into emotional layers beneath all the chaos. I always walked away feeling relieved and more grounded. Editing this piece now, months later, as things have settled down, is such a great reminder that even when I think calmer waters are just around the corner and everything then will be fine, life continues to bring challenges. And once more, Laura reminds me that taking time for myself, whether 3 minutes or an hour, is so important. During our talk, she actually guides us through a short breathing meditation, which came at a perfect time when staring at my screen editing. It's amazing what closing your eyes and breathing can do. We talk about how yoga found her at age 4, the pros and cons of in-class yoga versus hitting play on your phone, and all the different ways and expressions of self-care. We so often live in the past or the future, trying to plan ahead, reanalyzing what happened, could have happened, or should have happened. And ironically, all we really have is now. So how do we find the balance between being present and still getting stuff done? Yoga is one way of coming back into our body and the moment. But no matter what the practice, bottom line, when we slow down, we stay in touch with ourselves and can learn how to fill our cup. Then we go out and do the things. Laura leaves us with recommendations for online yoga platforms, and you will find those links as well as her info in the show notes. And if you happen to live in the Western Slopes, I highly recommend checking out her class at Yoga V. She is truly a wonderful human who has brought great healing into my life. Enjoy.
No, seriously, what am I doing with my life?
How did that come across? Did they hear me?
I feel like I'm losing my fucking mind.
You're messed up.
I need to just Netflix and chill.
Like, I'm gonna meditate like a badass.
It's just like this psychotic break, and then I get my period, and I'm like, oh, it was just your period again.
Am I the only one feeling this crazy? Welcome, Laura. Thanks for being here with me today.
Thank you for having me.
In this beautiful sunny room, your studio, where you practice all your magic. It's so gorgeous. Thanks. This is a perfect place to record. It's actually funny. On my way over here, I was thinking about that. Because we're talking about, among other things, self-care today. And I had a hard conversation with someone last night, and I needed to reset this morning. And yeah, luckily I'm now at this point in my life where I'm like, yep, self-care. I did, a yoga class that was even titled self-care, hilarious on YouTube. And she did a lot of breath work and long poses, which reminded me of your class, like all on the mat, seated or laying down. So it was exactly what I needed to hit a reset. I'm like, I need to clear my mind, clear my energy, because I really want to focus on this incredible podcast. And, ironically, it is about self-care, of course.
Yeah.
So yeah, just a little bit of background on how we met for the listeners. So I moved to Grand Junction this summer, and it was a shit show. It kind of still is. The moving, the stressful, logistics, the driving back and forth, and also just big life changes for me.
Okay.
And I was like, I need to do yoga. I need something that's going to keep me sane. And so I found Yoga V and your class. And as you probably remember, there might have been a couple times where halfway into your class, I would just start bawling my eyes out in child's pose. And I just remember eventually, one time I afterwards felt your touch. I think you grabbed my feet or something. And it was this allowing, that happened. And just this surrender and just giving me permission to have this emotion, even though it is always a little bit embarrassing because you other people hear it. But then again, we're all here to experience healing. So it's fine. But when it's you, it still feels a little bit hard. But yeah. And so I feel very grateful for you and very grateful for your class.
Well, I'm so grateful that you were there too.
It was definitely a piece of sanity for me this summer. So to you, I'm curious, how did you find yoga, or did yoga find you? I guess whatever way you want to put it.
A little bit of both. My father was practicing yoga when I was young, and so I remember him reading out of Iyengar's book how to do yoga. And so he would read the page, and then he would try the pose, and then he would flip the page and try and like read about the pose and practice out of the book. And I was probably about 4 years old. This was one of my like earliest childhood memories.
Oh my God,
and
that's so cool. I'm a little jealous.
Well, then I practiced with him, or I mimicked what he was doing. And I am a little bit more of a person that needs to move. So I went into the dance world as a kid and as a young adult. And then I really wanted to look like the gals that were on the Yoga Journal cover of the magazine. And so when I turned 18, I dove into yoga practices, which I'm grateful for, because it was more than just looking like the gals on the yoga journal.
But when you're 18, you're like, that's what I want to look like.
That's what I want to look like.
That's what's going on. I mean,
Exactly.
The fact that you're doing yoga at age 18 is already good enough. Like, yeah, it's okay to want to look like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And so it just, it snowballed from there.
Yeah, that's a really beautiful story. I was actually like on my way over here thinking like, I wonder what the story is. And it's actually kind of, exceeding my expectations. Let's put it that way.
Oh, good.
Pretty cool. This is so funny, like being able to get into something at a young age because of your upbringing. Because just the other day I had an interview with a psychic, and I guess she just grew up in a family that was like into the spiritual world, into the readings, into tarot, into physical therapy, into the bodies. I mean, I was like, all right, yeah, that makes sense. Like you just very early on got into something that it took me years to get to, but here I am. Here I am.
Better late than never.
Absolutely. I definitely deepened my yoga practice, especially in 2019 when I was going through like a really challenging preparation for a big performance with my dance company. And I was like, in charge of all the things, rehearsals, dancing, coordinating, theater, logistics. It can be a lot. And I started feeling really stressed and imbalanced and anxious. I'm like, this is not how I want to feel. I want to enjoy this process, and like the dancing matters to me. That's why I do this. And I discovered Kundalini yoga.
Okay.
And I just started going every single week because I was like, again, like with you, this is going to keep me sane. And it did. And I was in love with Kundalini. And my teacher, and Alex, she was incredible. I learned about chakras and energy channels and, your aura and all this stuff. And then COVID happened. She did go remote, and I was still doing it, but then I think she ended up stopping. And then, basically your class, it had been 3 years since I'd been in a classroom.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, 3 years. So I think that was also why your class impacted me, because we were talking about the difference of like watching a video versus having a human speak to you, even touch you, having other people breathe with you.
Yeah. I was reading something on social media this morning where one of my teachers said, it's funny that we have to go to an app to find meditation, which takes you out of your head space to listen, to get you back into your space. So it is important to practice with others, because everyone is there in that moment absorbing what we're doing together. So there is such a big difference of being in community in these practices. And to what you were speaking about earlier about having an emotional response in class, that also might allow someone else to go, oh, that's okay.
Right. Yeah, it gives others permission.
Yeah, they might be holding back and they might be tensing, trying not to let it flow through them.
Thanks for saying that. Maybe somebody was in there just going like, oh,
that's okay. Yeah. And Also, that also gives a person to offer empathy and to be in community with someone that is uncomfortable or going through something. It gives them a chance to be like, oh, their heart's hurt, and offer that quietly, or however they do that gives everyone a chance to heal or to be in that space and see what comes up, because some people might be uncomfortable and some people might offer that heart space. And so it just gives us an opportunity to see what comes up for ourselves.
That. It's beautiful. It's like your own vulnerability is allowing others to then also be vulnerable and be like, oh, we're doing this.
Yeah.
We're doing this together. And there's something about witness.
Yeah.
Witnessing ourselves, but also witnessing others.
Yeah.
Which, kind of makes it not more serious, not at all, because there's nothing serious about it, but more profound, more powerful.
Yeah.
Because you're like committed to that 1 hour of yoga.
Yeah.
You have put your mat down. And yes, you do that with your app as well, but it's like we're all in here, we are in it together, no matter what arises.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting.
For me with app work, I end up just pushing pause and go, let me just clean this.
I hear you. It's like easier to just like not commit, as we said. Like there's no committing walking into this room, closing the door, putting the yoga mat down. Like you're not going to start doing that in class,
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, I want to get to yoga, and I want to also start with a big term that you and I discussed we would talk about today. Self-care. Oh my gosh, everybody talks about self-care, and it's such a thing.
Yep.
It is used and thrown around wildly. But it is also like seriously one of the hardest things to do.
Oh, absolutely.
It is so interesting, but it is literally one of the hardest things to do. And what I've learned when you start tapping into it, which I think I have now more and more, it is really empowering. I guess it's empowering to realize like I am actually in charge of my own happiness. Like I actually get to make decisions. That was a shift for me.
Yeah. Yeah. I bet.
There was like some conditioning that was, and I don't think society necessarily focuses so much on teaching us that. But what I realized is that self-care for me is stopping and listening deeply so that I can learn what my needs truly are.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's, to me, what I think the biggest lesson I've learned is like, first I must stop.
Yeah.
And even if it's just for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And again, going back to the app, I do have a meditation app. And sometimes that's like, okay, just hit play. You're committing to 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Sit down, close the computer.
Yeah. And sometimes we do need these tools of the apps and the onlines because we may not be in a space where we can go to a studio or find a community. So these are important. I don't want to downplay those.
Oh, no, absolutely.
Yeah,
I hear you.
But it is, yeah.
I think both are important and have their place.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think the meditation app is helpful because when I get really overwhelmed with like just everything that's happening and, stressed out about what's going on in my day, I think the guided meditation helps me kind of like focus more quickly versus just sitting in silence.
Yeah.
But I love sitting in silence. And I also know for that I need to have a dedicated space that is purely for that, which I don't have right now. So
yeah,
I think the app helps. But yeah, I guess like I'm just interested to talk about self-care with you because I feel like it is so, directly related to yoga and, this idea of bringing it back to the present moment, of being with yourself, of stopping, and not doing. And I feel like it all the different self-care, and we should talk about different types of self-care just to, give listeners ideas or inspirations. But they, for me, all come back to this like concept of presence and being rather than doing. And I feel like you have probably a lot to say about this because you do in your yoga classes really work with breath work. Mm-hmm. And that's something that I really appreciated in your class.
Oh, great. Yeah. I think self-care is just the best way to figure out, at least for me, me and my own experience. I didn't know where to look inside myself. Like you sit down in this quiet room and you're like, well, now what? Do I look around to see what I need to clean? Like what do I need to do? And breath for me has been the game changer of understanding what it is that I need to shift or change. Because learning the cadence of a breath, learning how you hold the breath or how you let the breath move through you allows for me to go, oh, I'm really tense right now. Okay, I don't need to. I can let that go with my next exhalation. And it just gives me the opportunity to understand what sort of the way that my body speaks to me. I get a chance to start understanding that language because there's no book. There's no Babel out there for understanding how you listen to the language of your body. But for me, the breath gives me the opportunity to go, oh, when I see this person, if it's a good person, there might be this, oh, yay, there's that person. Or I might see a person where I'm like, oh, no.
Yeah, holding the breath.
Yeah. And so there's all of that, those cues for me in the breath that gives me the opportunity to understand like, oh, okay. Instead of just painting on a smile and just trying to go forward, it gives me opportunity to go, oh, okay, this person delights me and this person, makes me feel a little stressed or shortens my breath. And
like kind of listening to those signals a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And then that gives me opportunity to start breathing and deepening and kind of standing my ground and whichever ground I need to stand in.
Which is something we'll get to later. Please remember this.
I will.
I do want to talk about boundaries, and you just kind of like already started going into, which I love.
We tapped it.
We just tapped in. It'll be a full circle. I'm so excited. Okay, so speaking of, I'm going to ask you an awkward question.
Okay.
Would you be willing for me and my listeners to do like a super short like little breath exercise / meditation or whatever you want to call it? Not too long, because obviously we have a lot to talk about. And if you're driving, please don't close your eyes.
No, please don't.
But would you like be willing to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. Let me sit up a little straighter myself.
Make yourself comfortable. This is perfect.
So where I always like to begin is just noticing where the breath is moving us. And so this can be done with your eyes open, or if you have the opportunity to safely close your eyes, please do so. But then we just pay attention to how the breath comes in through the nose, goes down our neck and throat, and opens our chest, our rib cage, our collarbones, our back body. And then as you exhale, you soften your neck, you soften your throat and your jaw, and you let it go. And then wherever you are, I want you just to feel your feet and soften your feet against whatever it is that you are touching with the sole of your foot or both feet. And then feel into your calves, your knees, your thighs, your hips. And allow those bones and those tissues of your legs and your feet just to soften. And then feel into the belly, feel into the bowl of the pelvis. And this is where you get to really feel how the breath and the cadence of the breath is moving you. And for the moment, just try to let go of any tension in the belly. And allow that belly button to be the buoy on the water, just allowing it to ebb and flow. And then feeling up the spine from the pelvis to the low back, to the mid back, to your upper back, and softening anything that we need to here. And feeling down your arms, through your shoulders, your elbows, your wrists, the palms of your hands. And again, noticing if there's anything we could let go of here. Soften the palms of your hands. Soften your shoulder joints. And then feeling up into your neck and through your throat. And for me, this is a really important piece of letting the neck and the throat be soft. And feeling up into the head and the jaw. And again, noticing, can you soften the jaw? Can you allow the eyes to soften even if they're open? And then opening the awareness up to experience your whole body, just standing, sitting, resting here in your breath And then take a nice big deep breath in. Open your jaw to let it go. So what was your experience there?
That was really nice. I needed that. I should start doing this before every episode.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just like do the little recording of you and just like start the episode. Okay, we're going to do a little meditation.
We're going to start
We
here.
just got to chill for a second. Because I'm glad we did it not too late in the show, because this is great. This is like a reset. It really is. It feels so good. It's so interesting how bringing awareness to your breath and your body can just, no matter how racy your mind is, and it still might be, but it just still helps with the reset.
Yeah. Yeah,
really
it just
does.
brings you present here, because for me, I know my brain wants to like be out in the future and just like, okay, we got to do this and we got to do that and we got to do this. And then sometimes I hang out in the past where you're just like, holy, this was a hard time, or
should have, could have,
ruminating and just like,
so good
oh,
at that.
I can't believe you did that, Laura.
Yeah.
And so for that moment, you just get to go, what is my body doing here? And it just brings you straight into this moment. And then the next moment might be off in each direction, in the past or the present, or the past or the future. But it's still, you get these moments, these little drops of like, this is where I am right here. So.
Oh, it's so interesting. What you were saying resonates so much about the future and the past. And I mean, that's like kind of like where all our suffering is born. Just so messed up. Like all we have is the present moment, and we decide to go all over the freaking place and make ourselves miserable instead of just being like the beauty of the present moment, or just even just like the truth of the present moment, because this is all we have. That actually reminds me of this. I watched this documentary the other day, and it was called Chasing the Presence, directed by Mark Waters. It's on the Gaia website. But anyways, this young man who suffers from severe anxiety and depression goes and travels to all these different places, including India and Peru, and all around the United States, talking to teachers, writers, therapists, psychotherapists, like gurus in India, and basically just like starts talking to them about like his suffering and like, obviously looking for answers. And I will say, I think the two things that I walked away with from this documentary that really stood out was the present moment and then self-inquiry. Which, they're kind of hand in hand, right? You have to stop, you have to be present, you have to be still to then proceed to do self-inquiry, deep listening. And it was such a good reminder of, how people always say when you meditate, ask the question, who am I? I'm like, that's just crazy. I know where we're going with this, and I know I'm not my ego, but my ego rules my world, and like, I get it, but also like that question to like really deeply ask, who am I? And all these teachers are talking about how your I actually falls away. And that's like the biggest lesson of letting go of control, because so much suffering happens because we want to be in control. And even deeper beyond that, it's like this feeling of unworthiness unless I have control, unless I do, unless I am, that outside approval thing. But if you let go of all that, it's like, oh, here is my self-worthiness. It's right here.
It's all right here.
Like you said earlier, all the answers, all the things, the power, the happiness, the joy, or just like the joy of life. It's all right here. It's so hard to find it.
It is.
I mean, this guy traveled all around the freaking world
to find it.
And I think he did in the end. He also did ayahuasca, which is like obviously an enhanced experience. And I think that was kind of a big deal for him. But also just all these conversations. There was this one person that he talked to, and this person was really trying to make his point about the now, which is funny because Eckhart Tolle, The Power of Now, that was like my first spiritual book.
Oh, wow.
And it was like the beginning of my, like,
the
okay,
journey.
now I'm in it. Now I'm in it. I've read some stuff here and there, but that was when I was like, all right, we're doing this. But the guy was talking to this young man, and he was just saying, all we have is now, and now, and now? And you were just like looking at him and like really just, like this is it. It's trippy.
Yeah. Yeah. It is trippy because it is. It's just what we have right here is all we've got.
But it's just like hard for normal human being that's not like Jesus or Buddha or something, to like not live in these concepts of time that we've created.
Yeah. Well, and I think also it's hard to live in culture and have a job and have a family and have friends or have the things exactly, to not be like, okay, so I should probably get my umbrella out because it's going to rain and I need to make sure I have like dinner started. Like, I feel like that is the journey of the householder in a yoga practice or in a spiritual practice is how can I be present? And I also have all of these responsibilities that I need to take care of. And so it's finding that balance. And sometimes that balance doesn't happen.
Right. That sometimes the balance goes to shit.
Yeah,
for me.
100%.
Like out of the window.
Yep.
Gone.
Yep.
It's actually funny that you would say that about like we have to do both, right? Because like one thing I was going to mention earlier too, thinking about self-care and how I would walk out of your yoga classes, just 1 hour of my day and I would just be a different human.
Yeah.
Like literally, chest open, shoulders rolled back, like feeling grounded in the earth in my feet, and then just going about my day, actually enjoying it more, being more present, more productive. And it's also just like, that's where the healing happens. That's where like discovering yourself through actual self-worth happens. This empowerment where you're like, I can actually now go out there and deal with the world.
Yeah.
So it's not just that we have to do both. Like, it's not just like we're confronted with life where we have to, somehow find that balance. The balance is like the point almost, and when you fall off, sooner or later, the signs will come.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And so I think that's the importance of self-care practices, whatever they are, is to allow yourself that time away from being a part of the list making and the doing, is just giving yourself that chance. And it doesn't have to be the yoga mat. It could be a trail. It could be, those are my two things really.
Right. I was going to ask you, let's talk about some ideas. I mean, I'm sure like listeners have their stuff, but yeah, I mean, a trail.
For me, I have to be outside and I have to have my feet on the dirt. And so that is where I get that presence, and I get that it's a communion of being with my body, with my breath, and with nature. And thankfully here in Colorado, we have a plentiful of that.
Yes.
And maybe for city folk, it's, putting on good music and being able to be out in public and not have to be having to respond to others besides just maybe moving out of people's way as you're making your way through the city. But for me, it's just finding that time to let go of the things. For me, a physical practice is necessary because I hold everything
in your body.
In my body.
I'm a mover. I hear you.
Yeah. So just allowing, and I need to stay close to the floor because then I can just go, I'm letting this melt into the floor and this is coming out of my body and I'm leaving it on the floor here.
Oh, yes.
And so for me, that is the best self-practice is oftentimes for me, it is just laying on the floor for 5 minutes, 2 minutes, 10 minutes, an hour of being quiet. And I've really had to let go of the fact that I have to be doing something active and like physically fit because this practice of letting go and melting on the floor and letting the things that bother me or worry me or create that inner tension, I need that time and space to let it go. And so then I do have more capacity to move throughout my day because I'm not feeling so burdened. But for some, those quiet practices are too quiet and they need to kind of run it out or wiggle it out or dance it out.
Or like shake it out
shake
or whatever.
It out.
Or scream it out or
exactly sing it out.
Sing it out.
Whatever it is. So it doesn't have to be yoga. It just needs to be something that makes you have that feeling at the end like you do when you come out of practice where you're like, okay, I can do this.
Yeah, and I feel like that changes for me too, because sometimes it is yoga and sometimes I'm just too tired to even do yoga.
Yeah.
I'm like literally just like you said, I just want to lay down, close my eyes, no input, no talking, no phone, no nothing, just silence and nothing. Like literally stop, because we do so much. And I think you, just as I, like have the tendency to like, you know, we're inspired, we're doing these things, we're moving, we're doing podcasts, you're doing massage and Pilates and who knows what, to like have that chance of just being still. And for me, that oftentimes is actually the same, where, you know, I'll be stressed and I come home and I just lay down on my bed and, you know, maybe guided meditation or maybe just like close the eyes, and just allow myself to be. And yeah, sometimes it's uncomfortable because you are stopping in the midst of like this go. And so it's like anxious and to-do list. And then you're like, yeah, but they can wait.
Yeah.
Those can wait.
Yeah.
They actually can wait. Like there's no threatening situation here.
Yeah.
They will be there when you get back up and feel a little more grounded.
Yeah.
And capable.
Yeah. And then I feel like I end up being a little bit more productive because I'm not dragging my feet everywhere.
Or racing or getting ahead of yourself and sending an email without looking at it again. You know, just like, God damn, like, I can't believe I just sent that, you know? And then you like run into something, and then that's when the universe is like, all right.
You need to slow down. And I think that is the biggest piece of my self-care practice is I need to slow down. Because I just get so fast-paced, and I take in information very slowly. When I do, it's there, but to be able to quiet the mind and sit in quiet, that's really the reason, from my understanding, is the reason why we have a physical practice in yoga is so we can sit.
Yes.
Because the physical practice is the least talked about in all of the yoga sutras, and all of the kind of the history of yoga is not about physical practice. It is about how do we stay in silence and sit and be there. But they recognize that we need to get the wiggles out, and the householders, they've been in the fields and they need to do movement before they can sit.
Just like sit down.
Yeah. You can't just be like, you know, tilling your garden and doing all the things out in nature and preparing food and dealing with children and then you just sit.
Yeah, it's like on a long drive. It's so bad for you. You're like going from like, you know, doing way too much to like just sitting in the same position, and that's like a transition onto the floor.
Yeah. Yeah,
that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, so those physical practices were meant to just like, okay, let's wiggle this out. Let's make sure that we do still have range of motion in all of our joints. And then we can start quieting and kind of bringing things to that still point, which is where that healing does happen. In a lot of the massage or the holistic bodywork stuff that we do, we're looking for that still point. And when someone can drop into that still point, magic happens there. That's where I feel like people just come out and they're like, that was the best. And I'm like, no, you got to the place where you were able to take that in. Yeah, that people took that in. They got to a real quiet, still space within themselves. And I feel like all of that unraveling of our stuff, just we let it go a bit. And then sometimes we just don't pick it back up. Yeah. Oh, man. Oh, I just am like thinking back to moments of that, like walking out of class or after meditation. Yeah, where you just like, you open your eyes and you really, truly feel like you're having a different experience. Yeah. A different reality. Yeah. Yeah, and then I feel like thinking about just, you know, some other self-care things, like I think for me, for sure, therapy, obviously mentorship, surrounding myself with like people that nourish me, that uplift me, that like carry me to calmer waters, and versus the ones that are like depleting my energy and making me feel anxious afterwards, like, oh God, and now I'm just stressed, you know, like those people that are just like, they just have this other way, and no judgment passed, but they just have the tendency to like do the things that you're trying to move away from. Yeah. Like worry about the future, worry about money. Everybody is against them. They're the victim. You're like, I hear you. I get it. I don't have it all figured out either. However, that's what I'm actually trying to move away from. So I'm not going to say these words, nor do I want to surround myself with somebody that says them. Yeah. I don't want to hear it. But okay, so this is where it gets sticky, and it kind of leads into something else that I wanted to talk about was boundaries. Yeah. Talking about self-care, you can't not talk about boundaries. Oh, 100%. Yeah.
in so many ways. Like,
Yeah.
actually, and it's funny because like this morning I was kind of getting ready for this and thinking about boundaries, and I had this like really difficult conversation yesterday, which is one example of setting boundaries. And I feel like that is almost like a different animal, because there are the boundaries that we're fully in control of. Like,
Yep.
do I hang out with this person or not? Do I go to the party or not?
Yeah.
Do I go climbing or do I stay home because I'm just freaking tired?
Yeah.
Those are the boundaries that are, you know, once you start getting in tune with your body more and more, I think we can have these boundaries set more clearly, more easily. And even though, you know, it is hard when it involves somebody that really does want to spend time with you, but there is this like protective layer, right? But then sometimes you find yourself in a conversation, just like you said earlier about the breath.
Yeah.
You're like, oh shit, breath is shallow. I'm feeling triggered. My chest is tight because someone that you are close to, whether it's a family member or colleague, where you don't, you know, you kind of found yourself suddenly in this conversation. I want your piece of advice, because it's like, it's already happening. You can't foresee suddenly these words coming out of their mouth, but they do. And you're like, oh, you went there. And I'm fucking triggered. You know, this is not why, this is why we shouldn't have had this conversation to begin with, but it's too late at that point.
Yeah. Yeah.
So then you are in the situation already with this uncomfortable person in their energy.
Yeah.
And then you kind of backpedal and you're like, all right, boundaries.
Yeah. So for me in those moments, I have a very clear example in my head. I have to feel my feet. I have to feel my feet wherever they are. And usually I have to put them right on the ground and go, this is where you're at right here. Just put your feet in the ground and start breathing, and know that whatever they're saying is from them, from their perspective, and how I receive it is my responsibility. So there's the boundary, is whomever it is that is talking to you. And my example is, I had someone come into the studio just yelling and screaming. I'm going to ruin you. I'm going to take you down. How dare you? You should be ashamed of yourself. All these things.
Wow.
And it's like, oh, wait a second. You know, I try to live from a point where I'm doing my best and trying to be intentional with the decisions I make. And I can't control someone else's response. And so it's just like, okay, I hear you. You're upset. Yep. This is not the time or place to be speaking about this right now. And, you know, whatever they want. I think hospitality really helped me with this.
Yes.
But with having those conversations with someone that is near and dear to us, it's like, you know what, I can't speak about this right now. I'm working through something right now, and I want to talk to you about it, but I'm not ready to right now. Melissa Urban, who started the Whole30, has a book of boundaries coming out, and she's one of my favorites, because she on her social media page just puts a green light, a yellow light, or a red light, like soft boundaries, like thanks so much, but I'm not going to talk about that right now. And that's like the green, like the very polite way of saying, okay, this is a boundary. Then she has like the yellow light where it's getting a little bit more firm, and then the red light is almost like saying F off, but it's still polite, like, no, we are not talking about this right now. I love you, and we're going to switch the subject because I feel myself not being able to stay in alignment with what I want to do right now. Or, you know, those sort of things of protecting that vulnerable space for ourselves, of going, look, I know you're hurting right now, and I see that and I hear that, and I can't respond in a way that feels whatever, fill in the blank of just like, that's yours. Yes. Understanding that,
Yeah. And I feel like, now that you're saying that, I think in this conversation last night, I did do that a little bit. And I feel like I was, generally speaking, like maybe better at managing or being present in this conversation than I would have been like, let's say a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
As far as like redirecting it to the person and like trying to make it not about me because they were starting to come and project some stuff. And so then I was like, okay, this is not about me. You know, this is about you and your pain. And I hear you. I have my own process, which I'm not going to dive into right now because I don't want to. My process right now is deep listening and that's it. And it's been empowering. But you know, this person was like super, super triggered and caught up in this drama. And I'm like, yeah, I can relate to your pain, but this is about you, right? And then I proceeded to give some feedback, and that feedback was received well. But I still, because of those kind of low cuts that were coming in here and there, I still feel like I walked away feeling lower energy. And I was feeling really well before. I did not feel well after. And then I started reflecting again, the going back into the past on some of the comments that were made, and like I'm like, what the fuck? Like, what kind of comment was that anyways? You know?
Yeah.
And that were kind of like judgy, a little bit like this, and not necessarily productive, nor kind, nor nourishing.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, you know, and so I guess then it's like that boundary that comes during the conversation, and then that boundary that comes after the conversation, where I'm like, yeah, I learned it again. I don't really want to talk to this person. And it's a shame and it's a bummer. But it turns out, even when I come with the best intentions, because you left me a crying voice message and I wanted to be there, I still walk away feeling empty. And it's confusing to me, Laura, because I truly believe that we're here to heal ourselves and through our own healing, heal others. Yes. We're all here to heal. And we all have different ways of doing it. I know your ways of doing it because you have helped tap into my healing. And I do feel like sometimes I have conversations on my podcast or with close friends or family I feel like, okay, yeah, maybe my healing is helping them.
Yeah.
But in a moment like that, I'm like, I can't do this. Like, this sucks and you suck and I don't want to have this conversation, you know?
So the question I would want to ask is, why is that bothering you or us so deeply? Why, whatever this loved one or this person is saying to us, why is that? What wound did they touch?
Yes.
Because that's our self-healing.
Way to call me out. I love it.
Yes, because no matter what or who says something, that's the point that we're trying to get to, is not to be knocked off of our energy, is just like, oh, that hurt because this person used to do this to me all of the time and I haven't healed that situation.
Wound.
Yeah. And so there's the wound healing of just like, yes, okay. Oh, there's wisdom, but it's effing hard.
It's so hard.
I just don't want to knee jerk, especially for some people. I just want to go, fuck you.
Yeah.
Like, no, we're not dealing with this. I'm shutting you out. Instead of like, oh wait, they just touched something sensitive in me that I haven't looked at yet, or I don't want to look at, or, you know, all the things. And so it's a moment for us to take it in and go, oh, there's the healing that I need to do, because that part is yours.
Yes.
What they said is theirs, but how you receive it is yours.
Oh, that's the thing. Okay, I'm going to have to write that down when I get home. What they say is theirs and how you receive it is yours. Okay, I'm going to put that in my diary. I always like those little phrases are just like, just bring it to the point. Yeah. I don't have a lot of time. I needed to be on a page that I can find.
Yeah.
Perfect one. I love it because it's so true. And that actually makes me think two things. One is we can still choose to talk less with this person and to protect ourselves in the future, knowing kind of like what to maybe expect. But at the same time, also be like, this is what happened. This is what, you know, how it made me feel, and here's my opportunity to heal. Yeah. Instead of being like, oh, I'm the victim and that happened to me and I was having a great day riding the synchronicities and highs of life, and then suddenly, no, that's not, this was the universe being like, oh, guess what? You think y'all like healed up and shit?
You've got this. Yeah, you're like, do you?
Do you?
What Jack Hornfield's book is After the Ecstasy, the Laundry. You're just like, yes, I'm healed. And then you go home to a family dinner and you're just like, oh shit, I got nothing figured out.
Nothing. Talking about boundaries, you know, when you literally physically come from a person, you know, like I was inside of them, like, and now I'm trying to set these boundaries. It makes sense that it's so freaking hard with family.
Oh, so hard, because it also feels like for me, it feels like I'm being rude.
Yes.
And that's just like, well, and they're going to take it as being, I've been told I'm a very cold person.
Yeah, same.
And I'm just like, no, I've just got some strong boundaries, because I know who I want to bring into let influence my inner world. And I know, for the most part, who I don't. I mean, I had some strong struggles to try to figure out what those boundaries are and who I will allow me to influence my energy, my mood. But it's hard around family, because for me, I walk in, we're sitting on my parents' property. This is not the house I grew up in, but I still walk into their household and I turn into like 13, 14. And it's just like,
You're like, oh, here I am doing the thing.
Yeah,
again.
I'm like, I'm 42. Like,
I can't believe I have to justify anything to you. I have nothing to justify to you, in fact. I don't need your approval. Like, I really, and it's so interesting how it's a great opportunity to step inside your power
and go, is this true for me?
Is this true for me? And select, delete, reinvent. What do I actually want to create here? What is my way? You know, and then stand behind that again, even when the questions come at you. Oh, it's so interesting.
It gives you that power, as we were talking about this before, is that gives us the power. Like, the diamond doesn't get shiny by just being there. It's that pressure that creates. And there's so many examples out there of like the pressure creates it. The pressure of gravity created us to stand up. So there's all these things that we need the pressure to, be more brilliant.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's so beautiful. Because I was reading my Chani app today, my astrology app that I keep mentioning, but in all of my episodes, because I do that a lot. And she has meditations and talks about your reading of the week. And she was talking about Chiron, the planet, the healer planet, basically a wounded person in mythology that then becomes a healer. And anyway, she really went into that, how the wound, the actual like discomfort is like where the light happens, where the healing happens, where the power comes in, where what have you learned? How is it making you grow? And possibly you turn into a mentor to somebody else.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the domino effect of like healing, because the Japanese practice of filling the cracks with gold to make it whole again. Right. I forgot the name of that practice, but there are so many examples of that in our world of like, we can't just be in the happiness bubble without, and that becomes a detriment. And I have lots of examples of that one, but we can't just, put our heads in the sand and just choose exactly who we are around and how we're going to be, because we do need that friction sometimes of going, oh, nope, that wound is still wide open.
Yep. And here's my opportunity. And
can I choose something different this time in response instead of like, oh, I'll just knee jerk it into my 13-year-old self.
Yes, I know. That's like where that's exactly like you said. That's where the light can come in if you are willing to go through the discomfort and actually look beyond. Which actually, I have so many thoughts right now because you're just inspiring me in a million directions. But I was talking to a psychic the other day. I think I mentioned it earlier. Like, I was recording this person that had read my tarot cards, and I was like, this would be a really cool episode. And she talks about frequency, like the vibration, like energetic frequency. And I think we all, for those of us who have some kind of practice know a little bit about what we're talking about. Like, the high frequency versus the low frequency, just like you said, the deep breath versus the shallow breath. And she said, when I talked to her about boundaries and this meditation that I had done, that was like a guided meditation, imagining a bubble of light around me. And Kundalini, you talk about the aura and the building of the aura, that, nobody, you can choose who actually gets to go in there. Mm-hmm. But she was of this mindset of like, no, you just get to the point where like your vibration is so high that you are unreachable. And it doesn't matter. You walk into a room of, 10 million assholes, you lift that freaking vibration. Yep. And I'm like, is that what you do? Like, are you kidding me? I wish, I could drag down the freaking dirt hole. And so I need to put those boundaries up, but it's so interesting because I felt like, again, getting ready for a podcast, I was like, those are two different approaches. I see the value in both. And, yeah, she said that for her, she actually seeks the challenge. But also, granted, her family, she grew up in the whole group of like psychic people that did all the, you know what I mean? Like, it was like maybe not as tensiony, but she like seeks the challenge. She said, I'm down, bring it.
Yeah. I say that to I'm working at a space where we see just general public for massage, and I'm like, yeah, give me all the hard people, because I've had such challenging clients that want to influence how I am as a person, that I had to go through a lot of therapy to get to the point where I'm like, no, you choose. And so now I'm like, give me the hard ones, because I will not let you into my, like, I'm here to give you some space. I'm here to give you some comfort. And that is it. Like, that is the transaction, at least in the massage room for me, of just like, I'm going to offer you this space. You can flail like a child. You can be the toddler that you need to be and be awful, and you can cry. You can, flop your arms and be awful. But that is where, and it's interesting when you stand in that, like, you're not changing me. Like, this is it.
I get goosebumps.
Yeah. Like, this is what we're doing. And, and it's kind of like, I refer to training my dog. You got to experience Max jumping on you the second you arrived. But it's like training a puppy of just like, no, that's not what we do.
That's not what we're going to do. We're not doing this.
And even my dog trainer is just like, you can't let him ruffle you, because if your energy rises, it doesn't matter if your energy rises to excitement or your energy rises to like anger. And that dog I have wanted to strangle him. I have cussed so much this year. But if I react to him, he knows that he's got me.
I know. And that's the thing, especially with family dynamics, right? Like, they know where your buttons are. They installed them.
Yes.
They're going to push them.
Yeah.
And then they're going to get you hooked. And that's when you turn into a 13-year-old girl.
100%.
And so it's like so interesting because, you in your massage room are in your fortress. You are the maestra. You are doing your work, and you have that stability, the groundedness, the rootedness. And then when you jump into the family, to do that work, I at least have to be okay with everything that comes up in my chest, because that's where I usually feel the things. Yep. The like, tightness and then anger in the head or whatever, and still kind of almost pretend that I'm standing in that seat of power. Yeah. Like, and just breathe. Because the moment you go there, they know they've got you.
They're in.
They're in. They're like, 100%. Nice.
Gotcha. Yeah. And the massage room is an easy place for me, because it is. I am the one in control in that space. And
it's like your comfort zone.
It's my comfort zone. It's a lot harder to go out and do it in public, because again, there's not a lot of control with others.
Yeah, and like unexpected moments. But I feel like both are important, and one almost like prepares you also for the other. Yeah. Like they say, you can go out in the woods and be alone and like meditate all day long, and that's great. But then eventually you do have to apply it to real life. And real life kind of sucks a lot. Yeah. And people kind of suck sometimes.
Yeah, which is why we need those practices of self-care to be like, okay, what did I wake up with today? Or what am I bringing? That's why I start the class.
Yes, I love that. I was about to say, what am I bringing into?
Yeah, like, how did you land on this mat today? Because what did you bring with you?
Yeah, and you're like, are you feeling sad? Are you feeling this? This is where I already started crying. I'm like, oh my God. Oh God, she does it. She knows. She totally knows. She can tell.
Yeah, because it's just like,
all this sadness.
We brought all this in with us. And it's like, okay, and that's fine. Great. This is what's present. So now that we're present to it, let's, breathe and move and see if we can shift it. Because I tend to focus until it's like I'm cross-eyed and I can't, it's just in me. And so it's nice just to let things have some space around it. And then again, some people will pick up what they brought into the room with them and carry it right back out. Totally. And some people just leave it on the floor and go on. So.
Yeah, it's interesting. And going back to the boundaries, and speaking about emotion and things that we bring with us, like one thing that I am pretty sure a lot of people bring to the yoga mat is like guilt and shame. Mm-hmm. I've found that my practice more and more quickly has become important to me, and my life is shifting because of it. Who I spend time with I'm spending time with less people first and foremost, but also just like who I'm picking to let into my arena is shifting. And then you're faced with these, you know, because we said earlier, there's like the moment of boundary within a conversation that you've been thrown into, but then there's also the conscious decision of not seeing someone or not going somewhere. And sometimes that can be hard when somebody else's feelings are in the play. And it is so hard when somebody actually is kind of a nice person and they're not, you know, it's not like necessarily, it's just energetically it's not working. And I was talking to my therapist about this, and he talked about how one can word these things, right? Like, hey, like I'm in this practice of deep listening. It's been very powerful for me. I'm energetically not drawn towards you and honestly not spending much time with people. And it's true. I mean, all those are good wordings, but also with my really close friend Colette the other day, we were talking about it. She's like, yeah, but the thing is like, the people that would get that wording, those are actually the people that you want to hang out with.
Those are your people, yeah.
Those are your people versus the people that you're trying not to spend so much time more with. Or you can be like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like,
You're like
energy-wise, like in deep listening, that's I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, and then, that feeling of like, oh,
yeah,
I'm hurting them or something.
Yeah. I try to choose that like neutral, like I'm just unavailable, and not give an explanation, because some people don't need an explanation.
Oh, I like
of
that.
Just
I'm just
like,
not available.
I'm just unavailable at that time, or I just can't, or just no, without an exclamation or an explanation of why you're choosing that answer. Because again, that's a strong boundary too, of like, just no, I can't.
Yeah, and then it's like so gentle and it's kind of non-arguable.
Yeah, you're just like, no, you suck, so I don't want to hang out with you.
I know.
I'm like, that's really awful to say. And that might be the truth, but that doesn't spread the love. It doesn't spread gentleness. It doesn't do the things that we're trying to, at least in the spiritual practice, I feel like we're trying to get towards more loving and more
compassion.
Grace. Yeah, empathy, all those things. And sometimes just a strong, nope. Can't do it. And that's it.
I love that. You know, it's funny. This actually reminds me of what we were talking about earlier, how we were saying practicing self-care also, you know, hopefully shows others that they can do the same, right?
Yeah.
And that's the same thing with that. Like, hey, I get to set boundaries and I get to say no, and so do you.
Yeah, yeah.
And so take it that way, please.
Yeah.
If you can.
Yeah.
Like, that's actually empowering. I have felt no's towards me empowering often. Like sometimes I was like, oh wait, what? No. But then also like when women, especially in my life, they're like, no, I'm like, fuck yeah, way to go.
Awesome.
You know, way to say no. And then it makes me feel like, oh, do I want to do that? Maybe I don't want to go there. You know, maybe I am just kind of going to chill. I don't know, you know?
Yeah, it's that deep listening of like, am I doing this because that's culturally what I'm supposed to be doing? Or is this a yes from my core of myself going, I'm so excited to go do this, or I'm not really feeling this sort of thing. And I think that's where that deep listening comes in, to be able to respond just.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So going kind of back to all the things, the yoga, the self-care, the millions of things we've talked about today that are all so tightly connected, I definitely fall off the wagon.
I think we start again sometimes like 1,000 times a day. Like you're just like, oh, I was a jerk. Okay, let's try this again. For the next soul that gets to like, you know, show up for us. So I think we just keep starting.
Yeah, it just seems like that's the thing. And I appreciate that coming from somebody that in that, you know, sense of like practicing and sticking to your practice, which is like the hardest part. Find your practice, whatever it is, and freaking stick to it.
Yeah.
Stick to it and remember it's there. And when you fall off the wagon, get back on.
It's still there. Yeah.
You just know, make a list and look at the list you know, whatever it takes. Another question I had for you, for those of us who do have kind of a crazy life and we're out there doing a lot of moving around and maybe not always with access to a yoga studio, do you have any recommendations for like online platforms?
Yeah, my first usually turn is to Yoga Glow, and that's yoga with a GLO at the end, just because they have some of my favorite teachers on there. And I think that's important, is finding someone that you connect with.
Right, and that's the thing. And it's even harder digitally.
It is. And so sometimes it is just a Google search of like, oh, that title looks like what I need to hear.
Right. Like, where am I being drawn to?
Exactly. So Yoga Glow is one of my first stops. Yoga International is becoming more and more of my first stop, because a lot of my favorite teachers moved from Yoga Glow to Yoga International.
Oh, interesting.
Just because of the business dynamics. Or I don't know what happened there, but a lot of them jumped ship to Yoga International. But then there's Yoga U online, like Yoga University online. I think they're out of Canada. But then I like books. And then sometimes I just think about sequences that I've done in a class before that felt good, and then just start moving from there. For me, in my personal practice, I've had a hard time because I'm like, well, so for me, I want to lay on the floor and be a blob.
Yes.
But that also that can drag my energy into too much stagnation. And so I know after years of learning about this that I need more movement. And that can feel really overwhelming for me, because I'm like, well, now there's all these options. And it's like, just start with something. Maybe it's just down dog to plank, and that's all we do.
Yeah.
But at least there's movement in there. And so I know, like, my yoga teacher talks about, having a strong personal practice. This example that I have, I taught a workshop over the weekend or a couple weekends ago with a myofascial release in yoga, which is basically self-massage and then a yoga practice to integrate the massage work that we do for ourselves.
And where did you teach that?
Yoga V.
Oh, that was a Yoga V.
Yeah,
okay.
That's the first Saturday of every month. But one of the students went home and he was like, well, I needed at least like 5-10 more minutes on my hip, and then my hip felt better. And so it's just like, I, as a teacher, don't know exactly what every soul in that room needs. And so I try to make a smart plan of what I feel like the general physical body needs, but only the student knows what they need. So to stay in child's pose for like 10 more minutes, or to, stay in a lunge on your left side for 5 more minutes or 2 more breaths, that's where I feel like to be able to pause, that's where I think being online is great. Just you can pause and you're like, I need to stay here for a while. And that might lead us into, we might be able to riff off of that. So I feel like there's time and place for being guided. And then there's also that time where you're like, actually, I need this.
And then for those who do live in the Western Slopes, they can find you at Yoga V.
Yep.
And you also offer private classes?
Yep, I do. Yeah. I offer private classes. We're sitting in potentially my new space, my new Pilates space and yoga space. We'll offer yoga and massage and Pilates. And we also do craniosacral work. So we're just starting to open up this space that we're sitting in for more work.
It's the perfect place. I love the energy here so much.
Thanks.
And thank you so much for your insight and the detail, and just being so well spoken about all the things. I really appreciate you, and I appreciate your classes, and I'm grateful that I met you. I don't think it was a coincidence.
Well, I appreciate you showing up. That class it's been hard for people to come to. So you entered that class just as other people were starting to show up too. So I feel like there wasn't any coincidences there, that you were there being able to receive the work. And I think that also was helpful to that class, because there's some people that come in and they're like, why are we holding this for so long in the middle of class? And you're like, you're missing the point.
The whole point. Take a deep breath. So, even if it's not comfortable physically or emotionally, but that's the point.
This is the point.
You can soften.
Yeah.
I do feel grateful that despite all my sensitivities and tendencies emotionally sometimes, that again, the silver lining, it does allow you to drop in, I think, more quickly and open to that. So
absolutely.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. And please feel free to send questions, comments, and topics you would like to hear about to Isabel at kegelsandcoffee.com. That is ISABEL at kegelsandcoffee.com, or you can find me on Instagram under Kegels and Coffee. Take good care, stay tuned, and remember, when in doubt, drink coffee or do Kegels.